We're excited to announce that we've joined the Creator Accountability Network, CAN. CAN is a nonprofit dedicated to reducing harassment and abuse through ethical education and a system of restorative accountability. We join because we care about the safety and well-being of our community members. If you feel our behavior or content has harmed someone, please report it to CAN, either via the reporting form on their website, creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org, or via their hotline, 617-249-4255. They'll help us make it right and avoid repeating that mistake in the future. CAN also needs volunteers from our communities to help with their process. So if you have skills you think will be helpful, or time and a desire to help, please visit their website to find out how you can volunteer. Most importantly, get the word out to other creators who you think would be interested in getting credentialed. Help us build safer communities together. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
So today...
Oh, that was a great intro. I love that intro. Yeah. I just,
Yeah.
I know it'll be an intro eventually. If you're live, you don't get to see the intro. Just pretend you heard us saying, welcome to the greatest podcast ever.
Yeah, and nobody's live, so... not yet. Eventually. Someday. We are actually there is somebody watching. I don't know if it's Alex or not. Alex, if it's you, you can throw it up in the chat. Anyway, today's topic is taxes. And I wanted to talk about taxes because Logan talks about taxes a lot.
Because he's a Republican.
Well, he definitely in this case is going to sound like a Republican. But when we drove through DC on Friday, and I think we saw an IRS office or something, and he goes, "That's the IRS. That's where you have to pay taxes." And I every time he says something about taxes, because he sees ads where they're like, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. I know that Joe Biden's no longer in the race, but the ads haven't changed that much.
He's what?
He's no longer in the race. We kicked him out of the white race.
Look who's such a racist.
That accent makes me feel like you're... It was like an Irish Indian.
It was just a random racist doesn't exist accent.
It was all the eyes put together.
Whenever I do an accent like that in comedy shows, Mikey, hi Mikey, I know you're listening. Mikey shows look and go, so where are you from then? It always puts you on the spot when your accent falls.
Nice. So every time he brings it up, because he sees stuff on ads and people talk about taxes, and people will adults talk about taxes in front of him, and so
I would never talk about taxes in front of that fucker.
So he is very anti-taxes, as makes sense for what he knows of them. But every time it comes up, I just explain like taxes, are essentially like the stereotypical like vegetable. Like kids don't necessarily want to eat them, but you got to eat them. It's good for you. It's it doesn't mean that every one is the one that we think is the best vegetable, and some we wish we didn't have to do, and some we definitely shouldn't have to do. But there's more there than just like taxes. And as I wrote it in our list, our topic list, and then I realized
we were talking about vegetables. I'm totally unprepared for this conversation. I thought it was going to be vegetables we do have to eat, and vegetables we'd rather not eat. Okay, but anyway. I'll improvise.
Anyway,
Matthew said something.
Anyway, so we'll cut everything Matthew says out, unless it makes me sound good. So when I wrote it down in the list, and then I started realizing that that taxes have become like a mythological villain in America. They are part of America's mythology, obviously, because we look at the Boston Tea Party, and a huge part of our founding. Is it a legend when it's partially true, but it's exaggerated, or
Yes,
or
that is a
that's a
legend.
legend. Okay, so
Legend
it's the
is based in truth,
okay.
as
So
opposed to mythology, which is not.
our founding the legend of our founding is, and I don't want to say it's exaggerated, but maybe the connotation and the tones and a bunch of other things have changed. But like, taxation without representation is a huge part of what caused what was the thing that spurred the revolution. So it's complaining about taxes is the most American thing probably that there is. But the
Okay, pop
a
quiz. Pop quiz. What year did federal income tax, federal taxes in general, become legal?
I have no idea.
What year would you guess? Let's say Constitution.
1783.
Well, the Constitution was 1787 or 1789, right? So it has to be after the Constitution.
Okay.
What year do you want to do?
1997.
You were closer with that guess than your first guess.
Okay. I had no idea.
1913, the 16th Amendment
Okay.
established federal ability to tax.
Cool. So
So it is very American for a long time not to have taxes until that amendment was passed. So
right.
every crazy person who goes, taxes are unconstitutional, you don't have to pay, except for the fact there's a constitutional amendment that says
Yeah.
they're allowed to have taxes.
Right. Um and I think it's so I wanted to talk about taxes because we most of us learned that there's some nuance between the taxes that it was King George, right? King
Yeah,
George that we
one of them. Second, I
revolved
think.
against, revolted against.
I think King George was revolting. Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
the second.
So
It's
the
not her
king.
groundwork. Start of the revolution. Yeah, yeah.
So when that happened, the taxes were obviously weren't being represented, but also they were taxes in that British monarchy structure were essentially going to him. And maybe he was doing some stuff with them that was good for the people, but like taxes as we now use taxes to some extent. I know that there's a lot of debate here, and I would argue that we blow through some taxes that we shouldn't. But taxes are paid by the people for the people, essentially, and
No, no,
it gets abused. I'm
yeah,
not
no,
saying,
no, no. I'm smiling because you were one two-thirds of Lincoln's speech there. Government for the people, of the people, by the people. You were two-thirds of it.
yeah.
And it's like waiting for you to figure out how
So
to get the last third in there.
so I think that, as is the case with any structure, it can get abused, um, and it obviously does. We want taxes for our roads and our schools. Well, when I say we, I mean you and I believe Alex and a lot of Americans, but not everybody. We want taxes for our roads and our schools and our firefighters and
Our schools, man, private schools maybe.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's part of the problem here is that we've made taxes into this great villainous thing, and we've also made tax deductions and loopholes and all these things like those are taxes are America's Goliath, and deductions are the sling that let these little guys get up. Is the mythology we've created around it.
I say the
It's
little
not
guys. It's
true.
more like the big guys get to do more
Yeah,
deductions than the little guys do.
but the mythology would have you believe that, like, Matthew, if you give $10 a month to the whatever fund, you can reduce your tax burden. And I mean, even the fact that we refer to it as a burden, there's the language is. I'm not saying we have to be like, yay, taxes. I don't think that. I think that there is this. I think part of it is that I think if you ask the average adult citizen, on like man on the street style, what do our taxes do? I think they could give you a semi decent, very shallow answer. Like, oh yeah, like it pays for the stuff. But I still think that
That's
they would
a pretty accurate
probably,
answer.
yeah, but I think they would probably be hard pressed to explain
Piece
it.
the
And
stuff.
they would be most people I think would be negative on it, and and most people I think would not be able to articulate like, oh, I don't mind paying my fair share of taxes. I don't want to see my money go to build the military industrial complex further. I don't want to see my I actually think, in some ways, I actually think Republicans probably are better at that than we are, because they're very good at saying, "I don't want my taxes to go to public schools where they're learning CRT and
Yeah, I mean, they're because Republicans are children and they want to whine about the things they don't like
yeah,
rather than just to say, you know what, your taxes go to whatever the government's paying for. You can have the government not do those things if you, but
yeah,
that's you can't pick and choose where your money goes because that's not how money works. You could, I mean, yeah, very few people are going to be like, well, yeah, you got your direct tax, which is authorized by the 16th Amendment, then you got your indirect tax, which was passed through to the people. So you have a combination of taxes that you got to worry about there.
yeah. Yeah, I like your little
Yeah,
title, by the way, tax driver.
I don't know. People can't see that, can they? It's just us.
Uh, if they're watching live, they can see it. If you're that's another benefit, by the way, of joining and watching live is that you'll be able to see our fun little titles that we're giving ourselves for every episode. I'll give you like right now, mine says from Taxachusetts, and Matthew says, "You talking to me, tax driver." And so like we've been doing these for about 4 or 5 weeks now. They're fun. Just another little perk for those
Perks. We got
who
perks.
spend at least $1 a month. Um, yeah, it's like a little tax to get a show that you love every week, right?
So it'll be interesting if the famous book about was it a famous, but I can't remember the name. Was it a bear walks into a town, or is that what it was?
A libertarian walks into a bear,
The
something
libertarian
like
walks
that.
into a bear. Yeah,
I
something like that.
have it. I
So
have it on the
so
shelf here somewhere.
he's shellfish.
Oh,
So while he's looking for see if we can confirm the title. For those who don't know, it's about a small town, road in Rhode Island, I think,
New
maybe
Hampshire.
New Hampshire, same thing, same shit, all the same.
A
Massachusetts, Rhode
libertarian
Island.
walks into a bear.
Yeah. So it's a small town, but libertarians basically took over the town government and said, we're going to make a libertarian dream. And they got rid of as many rules and regulations as they could. And then there was the inciting incident that the book title kind of references, the bear coming to town and is smashing garbage cans and knocking the over. And nobody knows what to do because they got rid of the infrastructure where it would be somebody's responsibility to take care of it. And no
Mm-hmm.
individual wants to go fight a bear, but they don't no longer don't have a police force to do it or an animal control because they saw that as unnecessary. Kind of like being president and getting rid of the vaccine uh, pandemic response team. No, sorry, the virus, pandemic response team right before there's a pandemic. You get rid of something because you think it's a waste of money.
You have to stop throwing out these hypotheticals that will never happen.
Yeah, who would do
You
that?
do it every episode
Um,
lately.
yeah, and so I think it would be cool. Here's my hypothetical. I'm doing a hypothetical. You can't stop me. It'd be cool to have a town that would say, you know what, or state no state level taxes. We got federal, we got to do federal, but no state. And we're basically going to put, credit card readers, on here in North Carolina, when you're driving down the toll highway, it's just like an Easy Pass, kind of thing, or Sun Pass, Peach Pass, depending where you live, those kind of passes. I don't even know what ours is called, but it scans the pass in your car and charges you for being on the toll highway, which is in lieu of raising taxes, right? They could have raised taxes to pay for this particular highway. Instead, using the highway makes you charge. I suggest we put those on every road. Anytime you call 911, you start getting charged by the minute. It becomes a 900 911 number. And let every single thing in some town be you pay for the service when you use it instead of having taxes, and see if that state is better off than the other states. I don't want to live there because I don't
That
want like to call the fire department and they say, let us check your credit score before we come over. Oops, you're in debt. We're not going to come put your house out. Now you don't have a house. So
yeah,
I'm not a fan of it. I'm not, but I think it might shut up the people who think that taxes aren't necessary.
I don't think it would. Um, and if
But it will make me laugh at them when their house is burned down.
yeah,
When
I
you steal
think
someone's wallet, they can't call the cops because they don't have money to pay for it.
yeah. So I mean, obviously, this is the thing we've talked about before, but communism is the boogeyman. and it has been for 100 years almost.
I don't
And
say communism. You pay as you go.
well,
It's
when I
a,
was,
it's
yeah,
more.
yeah.
It's pure capitalism. It's pure capitalism. You pay for every
But
service you use.
yeah, so what I was gonna say is, they want to use that as the boogeyman, and they talk, and then as time has gone on, they've introduced a little bit of nuance because they've had to in their boogeyman talk, and now they talk about socialism. And socialism
They
is
change the word. They don't know what either thing means. They
no,
just change the
absolutely, I
word.
agree with you absolutely, but they've changed the word. And socialism, like our fire department structure, our school system structure, as it is right now, and hopefully will stay or improve, uh, is socialistic. I don't know that it's a socialistic situation within a capitalist society.
Well, as Bernie Sanders says, every time comes from calls for socialist, democratic socialism. Like he
Yeah,
corrects
yeah.
people every time.
So it's there is a socialism to it, and it is necessary. We and I've had this actually. I've had this conversation. I'll go to schools instead of fire departments. Although I think fire departments can have the same argument. You and I, we live in developments where they're pretty tight. If my house caught on fire and nobody puts it out, there's a good chance my neighbor's house is catching on fire. I think the same is probably similarly true in your neighborhood.
If the fire
Um,
were big enough, sure.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it depends. It depends which side of the house. But yeah, definitely. Yeah,
yeah,
fire can spread one house to another.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
All
another
I'm
bet.
saying is we're not a townhouse. So just what you know, I live in a townhouse, but it's not. I'm not in very big lots. It's not far to the
Right.
next house.
It's and so that's a benefit of or if you lived in a wooded area and the house next to you
I
might
got
be
woods. I got
hundreds of
bushes.
yards away, but
I
there's
got
trees.
twigs.
You could so it is in the community benefit for us to have a team to put out the fires as they arise at no cost. Because let's say you're like, fuck it, I don't care about anything in that house. I'll just let it burn out,
What
and
if I'm not
then
home? I'm on
yeah,
vacation, and they
yeah.
say, "Oh, we're not going to put out the fires." Or if the house is abandoned, okay, well, the house is going to burn because there's no one there paying their fee.
Yeah. So like there's all those things and it would affect your neighbors one way or the other. It would affect your neighbors. And so we need it. And nobody's arguing against the fire department that I've heard lately. Schools, we do get more kickback on. So my dad says this a lot, and my dad and I've had this conversation.
I don't have any school age
So
children.
I don't have any school age children, but I have to pay for the schools. And I said, and I always say, like, I get it. I get that it's what I like to call the Republican unanswered logic. It's logical until someone explains why it's not, essentially. Like it's like that logic makes
I mean, your,
sense.
your dad's in Massachusetts, so my response to your dad when he and I finally meet is going to be, listen, when you go to Dunkin', like every Massachusettsian does,
I would
you
prefer
want
you
the
not.
person behind the counter to be able to take your order and ring it up. You want them to have gone to public school to at least take your order and deliver it to you properly. And if
Yeah,
they don't, you're going to bitch and complain about it.
yeah.
But then you're
Or
going to say, but they shouldn't go to school. I mean,
count your change. They want
benefits.
you want people to be able to count your change properly. You want you want if they shortchange you, you want to be able to explain to them why and have them understand why. Because I mean, even an educated person can accidentally make
If,
shortchange
if the
somebody.
person who is going to be the doctor who performs your triple bypass does not grow up rich, you want them to have gone to school so they can go to college and medical school and
Yeah,
perform your triple bypass.
and so I've explained that, and he kind of gets it, and on the surface level, but then it becomes a matter of, and this is where the fight has moved. Not just not my dad and I aren't arguing when we just are talking, but the fight has moved for other people, and I think this is more of a tail wagging the dog than the other way around, but they don't want to fund the schools, and so the way that they're explaining that is, well, I don't agree with what they're teaching. And I think there's probably a little bit of truth to that.
I don't like facts, and I don't want my kid learning facts.
Yeah, but there's also like
Critical
like
thinking
I don't think
skills.
it's appropriate. Like I went. I think we've talked about this before. I went to Catholic school from fifth
And
grade to
everybody
12th grade.
treated you very well because everyone's so well behaved in Catholic school. They don't permanently scar you at all in a Catholic school.
No, but I've never once had a sex ed class. Anyway, so like I think that that's how we're
Hey,
getting.
patrons, you heard that conversation.
Yeah. I think that's where we're taking that fight, and then part of the real reason is that like, look, Logan's gonna learn shit in school that I don't want him to learn, and
Fucking algebra.
but that's no, but I mean, like, part of it is, I mean, part of it is that we can't shield our kids. So yes, there will be the curriculum. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be a problem for me, but you're going to have a teacher who's, like, uh,
Classmates.
classmates talking about, well, Jesus told us that we need, at a certain age, he's going to run into people who believe stuff that I don't. It's not that okay. I don't want to make it sound like I don't want Logan to learn about Jesus. I don't want Logan to learn about Jesus without having a little bit of like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like when it's one of the bad, the worst things about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that is my job to like say, okay, what'd you learn today? Like to interact with my kid and to say, okay, like he was watching YouTube the other day and there was a video and I heard it, I couldn't tell what it was, and the guy on the video said, if you don't like and subscribe, you don't love God and you don't believe in God. And I
I
said,
do not like and subscribe to that.
Logan, I didn't hear the whole thing. I said, Logan, what are they talking about on that channel? And he goes, I don't know what, video games or whatever. I was like, did they talk a lot about God? Because I heard that part. And he goes, no, I think he was just being silly. And I was like, okay, I just don't want you watching.
He was watching our exit interview. Right.
I said, I don't want you watching. I don't want you watching God stuff on YouTube. If you want to learn about God, we'll watch stuff with you about it. Because YouTube is a terrible place to just go wild on your own, learning, watching stuff about God. Because we don't even know that that's the version that we find least offensive. That could be, Jesus.
Judaism.
They could be. I was going to say Jesus being a Native American and wanting you to fuck with a sheet or whatever. Like I don't want to pick on Mormonism specifically.
Yeah, that was
Any
Jewish.
of
Sheet is Jewish. The sheet is Jewish.
I thought there was they have the special
They
underwear.
have underwear. Orthodox Jews have fuck through a sheet. They like into glory holes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't even know if that's true. That's the shit that people said.
Yeah.
I haven't fucked an Orthodox chick, so I don't know. Hey, parenting break. I will give you unsolicited parenting advice for talking to Logan about what happened at school today. I don't know how your conversation with Logan go, but a lot of kids, a lot of times, or at some point, we say what happened at school today, like nothing usual, and it's hard to elicit an answer. Something I used to do with my kids that worked rather well was when I picked them up, I say, hey, I want you to tell me two things. Tell me, on one hand, the best thing that happened in school today was this. And then on the other hand, the worst thing that happened at school is this. And so you're asking for two specific things rather than
Yeah.
what happened today in school. You're asking the best thing and the worst thing without judgment over what it is. Because, the worst thing could be there was no grape juice for lunch. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, but it's a cool way to elicit that conversation rather than getting, I don't know, nothing. We
Yeah.
don't do nothing today. It's little three parenting advice for the world. From someone who raised three of those things.
Three of those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So here's my story to my children about taxes when they were young. It's we have a neighborhood, and what if one of the houses caught on fire? Our houses are really close to each other. This sounds really familiar. Where did I hear this? No, this is what we say, like a neighborhood, right? And what if you decide, you know what? We want to fix the potholes on the streets that go through our neighborhood. And everyone agrees we should do that. Should we each hire a person to come out and fix the pothole in front of our house?
yeah.
Or does it make more sense to hire one person or one company to come and do everything? Oh, makes more sense to have one company do everything. Great. Now, then we have to pay them. Should we each just start, have them bill everybody separately or argue with everybody the money or put all the money in one pot and have one person hire them and one person pay them? But we need to decide who you're going to hire. Do we all get to decide who we hire? Do we all start arguing about it? All 100 people live in the neighborhood argue about it and have to pick their favorite one. What if we choose a couple of people to make the choice over who's going to fix the road and then give them the money to pay the road?
Yeah.
And that's how you get democratic government and taxes.
Yeah. So here, I like that. I like roads as an example too, because I think roads have become a thing as far as tax. When we talk
And that was
about
a combination government and taxes. Like how you
yeah,
get government, you elect a couple of people to make the
yeah.
decision so everyone doesn't have to do it.
When we talk about tax rhetoric, I think roads become big for a few reasons. They're I think there's so many things with the roads, but roads. Here's an example. So like if we're all of our taxes go to some extent to roads, as they should, and we've heard, you've probably heard like there was a bunch of shit about like uh people being like, I'm self-made, blah blah blah, like I made my business myself.
The trucks go on the
Yeah.
highways to get to me. Yeah.
And so like we as a country subsidize those benefits for businesses or for individuals starting businesses. But here's the other way that it works in for individuals that aren't starting businesses. And maybe let's say you're a bicyclist who, or even better, you're a walker. You don't drive at all, you just walk everywhere, because there are places in this country where you can potentially never have to drive.
New York,
Yeah.
Boston, real
But
cities.
and you might say, why do I have to pay for the roads? I don't drive. Well, again, ambulances. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
have a heart attack, you want an ambulance. I mean, I get it. There's sometimes that helicopter is necessary, but more often than that, an
The
ambulance is
helicopter is not
necessary.
landing in front of your house. You're
Right.
going by ambulance to a helipad at the hospital
Yes.
to go to the other hospital.
Right. So there. I mean, all of these things. I mean, and I'm not
But
here to
also,
say.
if you want to be able to buy groceries, the way the groceries, unless you have a farm and you raise all your animals and raise your own food, if you're walking to a grocery store, the food got there in a truck that went on the roads.
Right. Right. And so, well, I want to move into the next part, which is I think that this is obvious to you and me, but I don't know that it's obvious to everybody else, which is
Because they're not as smart as us.
just
Let's just face
because
it.
just because
Our
I'm here,
dear listener, Mike thinks you're stupid.
not
He needs to
listeners.
explain the basics to you.
I'm not worried about too many of our listeners. I'm worried more about the general public. I think that it may seem that I defend taxes. It doesn't mean
He's
that I
very
like.
defensive about his
It
taxes.
doesn't mean that I
Very
like
defensive.
every tax, and I think that again, I'm going to give credit to the Republicans. I disagree with what they're doing, but how I disagree with their target, but I agree with the way that I think that would work for us for some things, which is if you don't think that you agree with the tax, vote for people who will help eliminate that cause. Now, I think doing that with schools is fucking stupid. I think there's less call for demolishing roads. Schools seem to be the big thing that gets gutted first, which is ridiculous. I think that healthcare is something we should be putting more tax dollars behind. But for example, I would be happy to reduce our defense budget because I think that from what I've seen, it is overblown. I
Wait, we can only destroy the world like 27 times, I think, last time I heard. What if we need to destroy it 28 times?
Yeah. So my point being, like, it makes sense that I would vote for someone who is going to reduce our dependency
Direct
on
funds from the
oil.
defense budget to the
Yeah,
healthcare budget.
yeah. So and I get that, and I actually think Republicans are better at this talking point again than us. But they also, I mean, look at Rick Perry. Like, there's a lot of examples of like, well, I just don't think the government should be paying for anything. And it's like, well, that's dumb. Like, I get if you want to say like let's reform things, the system will constantly need reformation. Because let's say we get it perfect today. Let's say we got everything is taxed exactly how it should be from a moral and logical standpoint. Well, as soon as we invent a new technology or we get a new disease or some other thing gets thrown in, we need to adjust. So like it is going to be in constant need of reform. We always will need tax reform. But that doesn't mean tax reduction and tax reform are not the same thing.
Not necessarily, sure. Tax reduction is
They
one
can
thing
be.
that could
They
happen with
absolutely
it.
can be.
I mean, they're not the same thing. Tax reduction is one of the things that could happen in tax reform,
Yes, yeah.
but tax reform is a much bigger beast.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Beast. I feel like we did a good job.
A friend of mine worked for him for a little while. I don't know if he still does. I haven't spoken to him.
Huh?
Find out. A friend of mine worked for Mr. Beast a bit, like
Oh yeah.
did artwork, did built stuff and sets and stuff for some of his more elaborate things.
Nice.
Crazy friend of mine, insane.
Did we
Nuts
talk
so
about him right
nuts
before we
crazy.
started recording?
We did.
Yeah, should get him on the podcast, uh, or on the exit interviews.
Definitely could do that.
Um,
We could do a full, I can get full cast members if we want to. We want to stretch it out, maybe
yeah,
have a lot of
yeah, I would
extras.
love to bring your friends on. I I think, I mean, I don't have anything right off the top of my head left to talk about with taxes, but I do think that a lot has happened since last week that would be interesting to talk about in our remaining time, so that we.
Yeah, I would just say that the one thing that I don't like about this aspect of the Republican agenda is they have two things going on at once. I want to cut taxes for the rich and and stuff, and I want to take ideological knife to things that are in the budget that I don't think should be in the budget. And I really think taxes doesn't need to be part of the conversation. It should be, what should my government do and what should it not do? And we still disagree on the left and on the right of which
Yeah.
things are important, which aren't. That's fine. But then we, as a government, a fiscal responsibility, not either one of us being a party of, the government fiscal responsibility, you fund the things you're doing. So
Hmm.
pick the things you want to do. That's what's important to you as a country, and then you tax to fund those things.
Yeah.
Taxation shouldn't be its own separate conversation because you're not taxing for profit. So here's what we agree we should do. Now we need to tax to do it. Then you
Yeah.
can argue about what percentage of taxes come from which people. I always think back again. I'm old, so I think of the '80s. The great TV show Cheers. There's an episode where um, Rebecca's boyfriend Robin is this British millionaire. He's the sheriff of Rottingham and Mel Brooks, Robin Hood, and he bets Sam a year salary. Each one of them bets a year salary on something. And Sam ends up winning. And Robin goes, well, you did it. You beat me. And Sam's like, I'm going to quit this bar. I'm so happy. And he pulls out a $1 bill, snaps it all crisp to a 1 year salary, dollar bill. He's like, what the hell's that? He goes, oh, for tax purposes, I'm a corporation. I pay myself a nominal salary of $1 a year, and everything I need and everything I do, the corporation pays for, so I don't get taxed on it. And I'm like, there are plenty of millionaires, so that's how their life works.
Oh
Like
yeah.
everything is paid for by the organization. I mean, it was one of the things that Trump's financial person was, found guilty of, that his rent and his grandson or his nephew's school and all these things were being paid for by the Trump organization directly, and he wasn't getting taxed on anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just throw that in there.
I
That
like
part.
that story. Yeah. That
But you wanted to
guy.
talk about the news. What was the news? The news about what's been the news recently? Um, to Yankees been doing okay. It's not bad though. I'm
No.
not sure. I'm not sure which news story you're talking. Oh, the IBM, not IBM, the Microsoft, the crash of
Actually,
you know
that
that
does kind of
affects you
okay.
every day.
That's affecting me today. So yeah, if you're by the time you're listening to this, you'll be like, that was like 2 weeks ago. That's how this works. That's
We
how
live in the past.
the time dimension works. But yeah,
A strike.
due to all the flights canceled, I was supposed to get a flight yesterday morning and then didn't, and because it got canceled, and so I had to fly this morning. Uh, I will say this: I flew Breeze Airways, which I had never flown before. I think they're like an offshoot of JetBlue or something. Sarah's flown them before. I don't fly new airlines unless I have a reference anymore, because Avelo, yeah, it was like the worst flight ever. This was a couple years ago, but Breeze was great. And I slept. I flew out of Providence and was able to sleep a little bit on the plane, which is nice. But I am exhausted because of all of the time dimension issues. Uh,
So the day that the crowd strike happened, the first day, um, I was in the hospital on the second day. I guess I think maybe the second day this was that I was in the hospital with my dad. I'm sitting by my dad. I wasn't hurt, and we hadn't told anyone posting about the fact that he was in the hospital, like trying to get everything done. Just the family was involved. But I have a family member in Canada, an adopted sister that woman who used to work with my dad, and she had no family in the U.S. And he just loved her to death, so she just became part of the family. So like when we had family events, like my mother's 80th birthday, that's just family members. She came down from Canada for it because she's family. She is my sister for all intents and purposes. And so I WhatsApp her
I think
and
it's intensive purposes.
It's intensive porpoises. It's very
Oh
intense
yeah.
porpoises. They swim with
We're not dolphins,
dolphins.
motherfuckers.
And and so I WhatsApped her, and like 10 minutes later, she's like, "I just read this. I'm driving. What's going on? Can I call?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can call me or my dad. It's fine." So she called, and then she was driving because she was supposed to be flying from Eastern Canada to Michigan, and she was on her way to the airport when she got dinged that her flight was canceled. So she's like, "I turned right instead of left on the highway and drove 9 hours to my destination because I had to get there. There's no flights."
Yeah,
Crazy times.
yeah, yeah. It's a
She had a gig. She had to play those drums.
so that's not what I was talking about. Was not
No,
the
that's not the
outage.
news you're talking about.
I was talking about. So I was on a beach in Massachusetts, in Gloucester, Massachusetts, Winger Chic Beach, best beach in Massachusetts, with my wife and my sister in law and the nephews and Logan. And I looked at both Sarah and her sister, and I said, "I want you guys to look at this." We were looking out at the ocean. The sun was going down, kind of to our side because it's not exactly east that we were looking, so it's to our side. And I know the sun goes down in the west. That's why it wasn't behind us. That's what I'm being clear about. Before you correct me, uh, and we're looking at this beautiful, scene of the sun of like that, like twilighty yellow sky. And I said, I want you to think about this and look out at this because this is what we were looking at the the day that it will be historic that Joe Biden decided to step down from, or decided not to step down from being president, but decided not to run, not
Not
to
to
continue.
accept the party's nomination.
Yeah, and I think
And
it's
I too will not accept the party's nomination. I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm going to get the same press he did, but if asked, I will not run.
yeah. So I thought it's big. I've been seeing some interesting stuff. We posted, we made that clip
Just
last
in
week on the.
time.
Yeah, almost a little late actually.
Yeah.
Like we should. I wish we had, but it was fine.
Timing is everything.
And it's kind of blowing up a little bit on TikTok, and we had some people talking. And one of the things that I keep hearing since that announcement is that this is I forget the word. I'm going to use the wrong word, but
Exciting.
no, it's people who are against this happening. They're saying that that we are not circumventing democracy.
It's a good word.
Yeah,
Why
they're
not?
basically they're
Circumventing,
acute.
short circuiting.
They're saying whatever it is that we always accuse Trump of, about circumventing democracy or whatever. They're saying, how is this not that? And I'm
Uh,
subverting. There we go. Subverting democracy. Thank you,
did
Alex.
God tell you that?
Yeah,
You reacted as if someone gave you the answer.
yeah. Subverting democracy, and I don't see the argument. I don't see the good faith argument. Now,
Oh, well, no, I can explain it to you. They don't know how things work.
yeah. Now, I will say, if, for example, the nominee ends up becoming Gavin Newsom and not Vice President Harris, then I could see an argument being made for that. I don't know that I would agree with that argument, but I could see that argument. But the right now the presumptive nominee, and it sounds like it's basically all but a done deal, is going to be Vice President Harris is going to be our nominee. We don't know who her VP pick will be, which is fine. But
It could
like
be someone I'm on a first name basis with. That would be pretty cool.
that'd be
Besides
cool.
Matthew.
Um, but so there's they're saying that, but I think that they're not understanding that we voted for her. Like
Well,
we don't
even
just
if we didn't,
yeah
even if it is Newsom or someone else, we didn't vote for um, Biden and Harris, and they didn't vote for Trump during the primaries because that's not how primaries work. You vote for the electors that you are going to send to the convention, and you're sending Biden electors with the expectation that they will vote for Biden when they get there, but they are
sure.
not required to. They can vote for whoever. There are some states that might
Well,
penalize them if they don't, but in general, they're not required to. And often they don't. Often one or two will usually the 98% do, but if only one or two do vote for someone else to make a point or to do something. So you don't vote for them. You vote for the electors. So in the case of Harris, it's the Biden-Harris electors, so it's even stronger. But we did vote for people who were entrusting to make to do the second vote. And then
Sure.
they seem to forget, we vote in the general election again, not for candidates. We vote for um, the
Okay.
electors to be sent to then vote for candidates. So there's two more
You're
rounds of voting. Voting for electors. I mean, the voting hasn't happened yet in the convention. Then we're going to vote in the general for electors, and those electors are then going to vote for president. So there's three elections coming up. There's a lot of Democratic Republic
yeah.
stuff that's about to happen.
So you are correct in the technical, but even if we grant them the
Technically
more,
correct is the best kind of correct.
but even if we grant the idea of the more emotional or moral, I don't know how we would put it, of like because my vote, I wanted my vote to go to a I don't care about the electorate. Like that is I understand that is the reality of how it works, but I when I vote for the person. That's how I pick, and they're a package deal to some extent. But here's the other thing that makes me crazy. So who is the only non-elected president we've ever had?
Ford. Well,
Ford.
sorry, was not elected to the presidency. We had someone else who was not elected, I think. No,
No,
because he wasn't elected to president, right? He was elected to the House of Representatives. He wasn't
right,
nationally elected to anything.
right. And he was then approved the way you would a cabinet member after Spiro Agnew stepped down,
Yes,
he
he was
became vice
appointed vice
president.
president, approved with
So
50% of the
so he's the
Constitution.
only president with an asterisk next to him. You know who's not president with an asterisk next to him? Lyndon Johnson, Truman. Uh, I'm sure it's like three or
Every
four
vice president who raised to the rank of president.
Roosevelt. Yeah, like because we understand that we elected them as a team. We elected JFK and Lyndon Johnson. We elected FDR and
Yep.
Truman. In that, I know that Truman wasn't the vice president the whole way through, but he was at the end, the last of FDR's vice presidents. We understand that, and we never have ever made an asterisk or an argument that I'm aware of against that
It's
process.
part of their job is to step in.
Right, but it's part. We understand that that's a package deal. Now, when I say that about Ford, that's not like a shit talking Ford. That's a true thing.
It's
It's
still
that
the way the process is meant to
it's
work.
still the way the process is meant to work, but we do have an asterisk next to him, and that's I've never heard that really used in a negative way, more of like a fun fact kind of way. So like the idea that like if we get a presidential ticket with Vice President Harris and whoever, it doesn't matter at this point because she's on the she
Let's say Roy
we
Cooper,
did.
just for fun.
Is that who you think is gonna
I
be
don't
on?
think he's going to. He's on the short list, and I think I'd be happy if he did because I know him. But
That'd be
I don't think he has the most likely. But he did win North Carolina statewide governor on two elections that Trump was on the ticket.
yeah.
That Trump won the state, but he won governor, not the Republican. Didn't get pulled
Oh
in.
yeah.
So think about that. I mean, he's never lost a North Carolina statewide election because he was attorney general a couple times, then governor
Yeah.
twice. Both times Trump was on the same ballot as him. So the people who voted for Trump split ticket and voted for him for governor, or just only voted for Trump and nobody else.
Yep.
So if anyone can bring a swing state over, it definitely could be my friend Royce.
That would be awesome.
But there's other
From
people who might bring a swing state as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. I'm
Like
sure
Shapiro will probably bring Pennsylvania, so it's bigger.
it would be interesting to see if they could get. I don't know. I don't remember who is like governor of Ohio or who. What's Shapiro? Where's he?
Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania.
which
Okay.
is a big state.
Yeah, yeah, and a big swing state.
Yeah.
Um,
But
Ohio's the
I
one that's always in the news too, though. And Ohio with JD Vance, it would be interesting to be Ohio
but
versus Ohio.
Ohio's not gonna swing though.
No,
No.
I don't think. I think you're correct, but
Yeah, it's red. It's red. It's red.
it would be interesting to find out though that like if for example, it's Vice President Harris running against JD Vance because Trump uh, eats too much KFC or whatever happens.
Yeah, yeah, it
Uh,
could happen.
that would
Um,
be interesting because I think Harris versus Vance is the closest we're going to see to a 50 state swing in my lifetime. Because that guy is not likable. I am
Yeah.
amazed that he
I,
won Ohio.
yeah, it's one of those things where I, that I wonder if President Biden waited to make his announcement as long as he did, so that the Republican National Convention would be done, and a vice president would be chosen
And they
when
couldn't
Trump
pull.
thought, I have this one. I don't need
Oh
someone
yeah,
who's going to help me turn a state or anything. And now it's too
yeah,
late because he has chosen this person, and that was done by an election of the electors. So that's
yeah.
a done deal.
When we were
Also, they
getting,
spent a whole convention bad mouthing Biden, and now he's not the first. Now he's not the target. They
yeah,
wasted all
oh
their
yeah.
speeches.
Did you see? Have you seen any of the stuff where it was? I guess Trump said it too, but also Stephen Miller was on something. He's like, "We've spent millions of dollars prepping
Yeah,
for a fight against Joe
we should get
Biden.
a
Are we going to get
refund.
our money back?" And it's like, dude, like,
No, you made a bad call. You shouldn't have been attacking someone before the general election. No,
or
not that you shouldn't have
you
been, but
just
you took
own
the
it.
risk.
You just
You
own
took
it.
the
Like
risk.
it's
That's what we used to call launching at risk. The
yeah,
stuff we used to do at work, we're like, we don't know for sure what's going to happen if we're
yeah,
going to get the approval on this day, but we're going to spend all this money getting all the material ready. And if we don't get the approval, we wasted our money.
yeah,
You're doing it at risk, printing at risk.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
What I think is
crazy.
funny is the argument over, oh, it's a bait and switch, we got the wrong person and wasn't elected. I think the Republicans, um, what are the words I'm thinking of? Fuck you. You have no standing. You didn't vote for Biden. What are you fucking talking about? People who voted in the primary, like we may have voted for Biden in the primary, I can understand if we got upset, or any Democrats who, whether they voted for Biden or not, if they were like, oh, if Biden had said this a year ago, Newsom would have run, Cooper would have run,
Sure.
Whitmore would have run. We got cheated. Democrats got cheated out of an opportunity for a robust primary. But Republicans have nothing to fucking complain about. It wasn't them. They have no standing. It wasn't them who got messed
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
But I also think that I think Biden is a straight shooter, no malarkey. I think that
Come on, man.
his his mental deterioration, I think, increased in the last few months. Like
Yeah,
I think that when he was in the primaries, he was sharp and still would have won any debates. The sharpness, I think it's a recent decline, and that happens
yeah,
in old age. It's a fast decline.
yeah.
And I think we should not elect the oldest president to ever be elected. Who was that? Oh yeah, Donald Trump is the oldest person to ever run for president, and he's obviously in mental decline. And I think the Republicans have made a good argument that that's not a person you should be voting for. So I agree with the Republicans. Don't vote for the oldest person to ever run for president who is clearly in mental decline. So here's my thing. Um, I want to see Kamala Harris get up in a microphone and say, my fellow Americans, I have to tell you that I had long heart to heart conversations with my friend and mentor, Joseph Biden. And Joe wanted me to share that he made a hard decision and it was the right decision. And I'm telling you, from my point of view, he's getting very old. When he speaks, he makes a lot of mistakes. Like, did you hear him think Nikki Haley was a Speaker of the House on January 6th? And did you hear him talk about being attacked by sharks when an electric battery was electrocuting him? And did you hear him talk about um, how his friend Hannibal Lecter died and how Joan Rivers voted for him after he died? And did you hear when Donald Trump, oh, I'm sorry, the teleprompter skipped a paragraph. Those are things Donald Trump did, not Joe Biden. My mistake. He's too old to be president. That's what I
Yeah,
want to hear.
yeah. I'm really liking. I think that I think they've handled a lot of this really well. Not in the in the bigger scheme of things, but the fact that like since the announcement, everyone's been like Joe's doing what's best for the country. Joe leads by example. Like they're doing a great job of that.
Yep.
One of the things that I really love that's happening right now is that Vice President Harris, when she was running, when she was running against Joe and Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and all these other people, she had ads that were, "This is why I'm
Be a
better than
Trump.
Trump. This is
Yep.
why I'm the one that can beat Trump."
I've been
And they're
seeing those on social media
and
playing
they're like, "Are they?
over
Is
and
she
over.
going to rerun this ad from 4 years ago?" And it's like she doesn't need to because you're playing it, and she
Yeah,
can
yeah,
say, "Oh,
exactly what I was going to say.
that was 4 years ago. I wouldn't run that ad today." but the cat's out of the bag, and she gets like it's. I've seen it in like 5 different places. Those ads, and I thought they were new until I watched a clip and someone was like, "Oh no, these," because it says like I'm Kamala Harris and I approve this
With this
message, and I
message.
was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's." I was like, "She's already got that ad out. That's intense." And then I watched a news clip where it was like,
No, it's an old
"No,
ad.
that's from 2020." I'm like, "Oh, brilliant."
Yeah. And it's funny. She got. I heard her stump speech earlier today. I was watching a speech of hers, which I think was today. I think it was today's speech. It was either today's or yesterday's. I think it was today's though. And she's hitting the same talking points, but updated. You know, she's
Yeah,
the same
and
thing. I was a prosecutor and I prosecuted, sex offenders.
so I
And
know his kind.
he's an adjudicated sex offender. Like she had to update it with all the guilty
Yeah,
verdicts.
yeah. She, I think she's been really hit the ground running on this, which I'm happy about. Um, yeah,
So like I say, I would not mind Governor Roy Cooper being the vice president candidate. I don't think he's necessarily going to be. There's a chance because I think they are friends and they worked together when they were both AGs, in California and Carolina. They were, did things together. They knew each other, so he has a chance. I think though that Joe Biden was considering Roy for attorney general next term.
oh,
And so I think there's a better chance that she will scoop him up for attorney general, since he was our attorney general for multiple terms before being governor. So I think that's where he might end up being. And that
yeah,
also might be an announcement that they make, like she and her VP make that announcement. Here I'm, planning for my cabinet. So then he could be a surrogate for her and,
yeah.
be campaigning for her in North Carolina as I'm going to be part of the cabinet, even if he's not VP.
How old is Roy Cooper?
I don't know. You're Googling it. You tell me.
Oh, he's 67. It's
Yeah,
not. It's not terribly old, but
it's old for if he's going to be 2 terms as VP, then try to do terms as gov, and then try to run
yeah,
for president. So
yeah. I
he's
was gonna
unlikely to
say
be President Cooper at that point,
right.
but not bad for being VP.
He did endorse her.
I think
It's
every
a,
Democratic governor has endorsed her now.
and yeah, she's wrapped up all the Democratic governors. She's working on the senators, is what I heard somebody say this morning.
Yeah, she has an overwhelming majority of senators and congressmen, but Congress people, but I don't think all of them yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Weirdly, when I Googled his name, instead of children, it says descendants, which is a weird way of like he's not dead. Like,
And I don't think he has any grandchildren yet, so it's just like it's
no,
just his daughters and son-in-laws,
yeah,
sons-in-law, his sons-in-law.
yeah. I would like to. I don't know that she needs to go super young, but I do think she needs to. I would like to see the vice president be somebody who, if
But
they do a good job, has an opportunity to be president in 4 or 8 years, depending on how things play out. Just
it's good,
because
but you also get the Biden Obama balance. So people were saying Obama was too young. It's
yeah,
like balanced it with Biden, who's been
yeah,
around
but
for a while.
Obama was what, like 46 or so.
Yeah, yeah, he's pre
Uh,
fifties,
Kamala is
60,
59, almost
something
60.
like
Like
that.
she's not a. I don't mean that
She ain't
disparage.
she no no she's not immature. She
Right, right.
has experience
She's not
as
like
a
a pres. The only precedent she'll be setting is her gender, like not her age.
well, and her ethnic background.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we've had a black president, but I know she's also Indian.
She's Indian and she's Jamaican.
Oh, I didn't know the Jamaican part.
Yeah, she's not African American. People like to complain. She's not even African American. She's a black American. Doesn't make a difference in her country. And
Yeah. Well, I mean it as. I don't mean any of it as a negative. So
no, 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 not at all. I'm just saying she's setting precedent. It's not the reason
yeah.
to vote for her. It's not the reason that she's qualified. It's
Right.
just like the asterisk next to Ford. It's just something to note
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's a ceiling that has been broken.
Right. I
So
will say
whoever,
this about JD Vance. JD Vance is like 3 weeks older than me, and that's a little like
yeah,
in
millennial, first millennial.
he would not be the youngest VP in history. He'd be the third youngest. However, if he was if he becomes vice president, there's a decent chance he becomes the youngest president in history, just because of just Trump's going to be the oldest. And so if he's the oldest, he's the most likely, and just in that sense, to have to step down or whatever. So
What? So I'm looking at Pete Buttigieg is 42, so he's a millennial, right? He was born in
yeah,
82. Is 82 millennial?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not opposed to. I think that like mid 40s is probably a good like they're gonna be taken seriously enough. Uh, but they're not going to. But they also have a political future potentially after 4 or 8 years of vice presidency. And I could even be convinced of up to 55 for vice president, or but I think that pushing 70 is too old for vice president. Considering I think we like, and I'm also fine if in 8 years after 8 years of President Harris we get a totally different president that's not on the ticket right now. That sounds, or that's not in the
Right. I mean, that's what would happen
in the
if it was someone like Cooper. Most likely,
yeah
you wouldn't say, let's try the old thing again. You'd probably have people who are stepping up for a robust primary,
yeah
which I kind of like.
yeah yeah, and it'll be a robust primary, and if we can get 8 years of Democrats in office, uh, and hopefully a good portion of that is with a House and Senate, we can correct some of these problems and make it so that if we fix gerrymandering and a few. I'm not saying that the Republican Party is going to die, because I know that every election one party says about the other one, if we win this election, the other side is going to die out, and that's just I've heard it for 5 presidential election cycles at least, and I'm sure it's been going on
Well, in a
forever.
way, it did happen to the Republican Party. The party of Trump rose where the Republican Party was. This party has very little in common with
Sure.
Reagan's Republican Party. So the name didn't die, but the party completely has been um,
Yeah, that's true.
had a Doctor Who or well, the Master regeneration. It's a
Yeah.
completely different party than it was. They don't stand for anything they used to stand for.
Yeah. All right. Should we start doing the sign off?
Okay. Those of you watching live on YouTube, oh, you're not. I have nothing to say. No, hey, YouTubers, come here. Come close. Listen to me. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing an edited version of what we did. You can see an unedited version. You know how you could see an unedited version? If you went to patreon.com/ talking about the big stuff and you join up there, you can see the unedited version of this video. For now, you can't. So all you can do right now is you can like this video, you can subscribe to this channel, you can make comments below, you can ring the notification bell, you can do all those YouTubey things, but you missed the really smutty stuff that I said. There was some sexual stuff in this record that I'm sure is going to be on the cutting room floor of the video. You ain't going to see it, but you could see it because patrons get an unedited version of the video, or at least a lightly edited, if not unedited. But I think unedited usually. I think it's unedited. You can get unedited. All the shit that I said, you'll get. You'll know what I talked about perfectly clear. And now I turn it over to Mike.
Yeah, and if you're listening to listening to this or this podcast, go on any of your podcast app, whichever one you're listening on, and give us a like and a subscribe and a follow, whatever the buttons tell you is the best. Give us thumbs up or 5 stars. That'd be great. Write a review. We would love a review. Even if you write a review that's not great, as long as it's got 5 stars, that's cool. Just be like
We will not judge your writing skill. You don't have to be a great
Mike.
writer when you say
Mike's
how much you
beard
love
is
us.
weird, and Matthew is
A
constantly
sexual
obscene.
dynamo.
Yeah, sexual dynamo. Just whatever. That's
He
great
puts his
for us.
wife and his child in cages. We found that out today. Well, only the
My
unedited version. You got to be a patron to know about the cage. Never mind. Go ahead.
uh, my what was I starting? Oh,
You were
if
starting
you
to say when you're on Patreon, you can go on Patreon, and even if you don't pay money, you can get your feed from there and just get that RSS feed as just a free subscriber on Patreon
yeah
and put it in your app of choice so that Patreon knows you love us rather than your app loving us. You could do
yeah
that.
yeah, and you can get those if you for $1 a month. You can get our episodes 4 days early, either through
4
Apple
days.
Podcasts by subscribing, or through patreon.com/ talking about the big stuff by subscribing as at least a $1 patron. But we also have a $3 option, which is less censorship, and a $10 version, which is where we leave in the just grotesque things that Matthew likes to say and do. there's a lot of options for you, and honestly, $1 a month is less than 20. It's 25 cents a show or less.
Like
Uh,
in this edited version, you may or may not hear about Mike's adventures not having sexual um, education because he went to a Catholic school. Maybe you'll hear that some of that conversation. You're
Probably.
not
I
going to
don't
hear
think
all.
it's.
You're not going to hear all of the conversation for sure. But more importantly, if you pay at the $10 level, you will get the same education Mike has gotten because he's been getting it from me.
Anyway, so that's it. We would love it if you'd support us. Which even just by liking and following anything you do for us, we appreciate. Comments. If you want to ever email us and have a topic, or if you're potentially wanting to be a guest on the show, you can email us at talkingabouttthebigstuff@gmail.com. We love feedback. We would love to talk to you. We want engagement with you. Yeah. And Matthew, you got anything else?
I just want to thank everyone for being around here to talk about the big stuff, and especially if they want to go to patreon.com or subscribe on Amazon to give us money because we do not charge taxes. We are a tax agnostic organization. We do not tax you. We pay our taxes, but we pay it with our own money unless you give us money.
What about Amazon?
What about Amazon? Buy something on Amazon. What?
You said or you
Can I
can
say
go on
Patreon?
Amazon and support us. You said
Apple,
Patreon.
Patreon, whatever.
Okay.
I forget which one I was supposed to say.
You
I
said
just want to
Amazon.
thank you. I'll just start over.
We're
I
both
know patrons can
exhausted.
hear this. I just want to thank you for being here to talk about the big stuff, especially if you go over to Patreon or subscribe on Apple and give us money because we do not get any of your tax money.
The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.